How do you respond to failure? Do you get down on yourself? Do you beat yourself up? Do you replay your mistakes over and over and over again in your head? If so, today's episode of the podcast is going to be particularly valuable for you because our special guest, Adam Jablin, is going to talk to us about how do we bounce back from failure. And that's coming up next, right here on Unshakable Habits. The right habits can help you have it all: more time, better health, improved relationships, and less stress. But most people lack the tools to stick with those habits long enough to see results. That is about to change. Welcome to Unshakable Habits with your host, Stephen Box. It's time to take your habits from unsustainable to unshakable. Welcome back. This is episode 76 of Unshakable Habits. I am your host, Stephen Box. And if you are joining us for the first time this week, let me give you a quick recap of what has been going on. We have Coach Adam Jablin from the Hero Project with us this week, and we are talking about all different types of fear. So on Monday, we learned a little bit about Adam's story, overcoming alcoholism and addiction. Tuesday, we talked about overcoming the fear of change, something that I think a lot of us can honestly easily relate to. And then on Wednesday, we talked about something that's maybe not as commonly talked about, and it is the fear of success. And really, what that boils down to is our fear of the unknown and our lack of confidence in our ability to handle it. So, Adam really gave us some good tips on how to step into that unknown and have confidence in your abilities. And today we are wrapping up the interview series with Adam by talking about the fear of failure, and more specifically, how do we bounce back from it? Because failure is part of the process. It's inevitable. We're all going to fail at some point. But the question is, how do you bounce back from it? Because it can be so easy when we fail for that to become a measuring stick moment for us. It can be something we constantly revisit and use as proof of why we can't move forward. So Adam today is going to give us some really great advice on how do you move forward? How do you bounce back from that failure and keep moving? And then tomorrow, I will do a wrap up where I will give you my biggest takeaways from this week. So make sure you tune back in tomorrow to check that out. But Adam, let's get started, man. In terms of bouncing back from failure, what is your story?
First off, I know what my goal is. I know where I want to go. It may not be finely tuned to every detail, but I know where I want to go. What happens is that becomes a bump in the road, and rather than failure, it becomes disappointment. And then it's how fast can I process that disappointment? I have a mentor, I have an outside reference to my life that I can share with. And when you share something really from your heart, your soul, you cut that in half. And he's been through the trenches. He knows where the tripwire is. He knows where the ditches are. He knows where the landmines are. He easily redirects me and puts me back on the path. Failure is really an emotional journey. It's how fast can you bounce back? And I'm human. There have been some things in my life, from being the fat kid to ultra shredded, to married to divorce, which was the hardest thing I've ever went through, to falling in love, to not having that relationship again, to alcohol and drugs being my solution, to it becoming my problem and living in a life in recovery, from being a non-believer to a believer, from running a multi-million-dollar family business like an empire to starting something on my own and doing the entrepreneurial journey. Okay, I have had many ups and downs, trials and tribulations. But if I can really process it, what it really was is how fast can I get over the emotions to regroup? And there were times where I had to whine like a baby. There were times that I needed therapy. There were times that I could bounce back literally like a Rocky Balboa movement. Drago knocked me down and I just bounced back up. And I can't really explain to you why each time I had to overcome this fear and this failure, it was different. Mm-hmm. I wish I could articulate it. It's actually more language of the heart and how it was affecting me in my heart. But I never stopped. I never stopped. So if it was whining, if it was crying, if it was therapy, if it was letting go of a relationship, if it was letting go of alcoholism and addiction, if it was starting something new, whatever it was, I never stopped moving forward.
One thing that stood out to me in our conversation is I see we talk about these three separate ideas, right? There's the fear of change in the first place. Then there's the fear of what if I get so successful that I can't handle it? And then ultimately that kind of leads to the fear of failure, right? Which is what happens when I fall on my face. And then we talk about this idea of being able to bounce back from it. And I think we talk about these as three separate entities, but they actually happen simultaneously. We actually deal with all these things almost at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
As you're trying to change, you're moving towards something that's an unknown that causes fear. And then at the same time, you're going to stumble in the process. And then now that causes that fear to kick in. So they're always, if you allow yourself to be, you're always living in the state of fear of letting go what is, not knowing what the future is, or worrying about stumbling and not be able to regroup.
That's it. There's a very famous Twilight Zone episode in which this gambler, this notorious gambler, dies, and he goes to the good place, and he ends up at the Wynn Hotel, and everything is just perfect, and they give him the presidential suite, top suite on the floor, and he has all these tailored suits waiting for him, and anything he wants, he gets. Anything. Champagne, caviar, the women, you name it. And he goes down and he's on the casino floor. And you got to remember, he's a gambler and he can't lose. Poker, blackjack, roulette. He can't lose. He never loses. And it's a joyride for a while. And then about 20 days, 30 days in, he starts going crazy. And he calls the head angel over. He's like, listen, I don't belong here. I know. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, isn't everything perfect for you? He's like, I don't belong here. He's like, everything, it's too perfect. It's too perfect. He's like, what's wrong? You win everything. You have everything given to you. He's like, that's it. There's no juice. There's no spice. I need to know that I can lose. I need it. He's like, let's rob a bank. Absolutely. We will have you rob a bank. We will make sure that you get away with whatever money you want. He's like, no. He starts screaming at the angel, right? He goes, don't you see? I need to know that I can get caught. He keeps saying, I need the juice. I need the suspense. And he goes, don't you understand? I don't belong here in heaven. And the head angel folds his arm and goes, who says you're in heaven? And starts laughing. And you realize he's there. Meaning if you got everything you wanted, when you wanted, how you wanted, there would be no juice to life. There would be no anima. There would be no suspense. There would be no reason for life. And when you can embrace that story and really put it into your heart, mind, and soul, you'll realize that this whole thing is a gift.
Yeah.
It's a privilege. It's a journey. And if you were given everything you wanted when you wanted it, you would have no drive. You would have no suspense. You would have no reason to love. You'd have no reason for being.
I think for a lot of people, what this really comes down to is we need failure in our lives because failure shows us where opportunities are. Failure shows us what we really do and don't want. If we never fail, if we just always get what we want, at some point we start to actually realize that's not what we wanted at all, but because we've never failed, we don't know what we want.
That's right. And what you want always changes.
Yeah.
You could want the most beautiful, blessed, harmonious family, and then you have the baby, and you have the wife, or you have the husband, or you have your partner, and then you want more. What you want is always changing.
And failure is what shows us where we really want to go.
This is not a quote from me, but I really love it. I've heard many of very successful people say they've never learned anything from their successes. They learned everything from their failures.
I will tell you that when people ask me, what is your secret to having a very long marriage that's really great? What is it that's allowed you to do that? Because I've been married to be 20 years next year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I always say that most of my relationship success is actually due to having a friend who was absolutely horrible in relationships. So I watched all the mistakes he made and said, just don't do that. And that's literally how I started. Now, over time, I had my own failures and learned from them and things like that. But a lot of the early success of my relationship literally came from watching him fail.
That's great.
Yeah. So even though it wasn't my failure, we can all still learn from failures.
Yeah. Yeah. I believe there's some famous quote that a wise man learns from other people's mistakes.
So, final piece of advice that you would give people and around just the overall topic of fear, like just it doesn't have to be about a specific aspect of fear, but just someone who's just dealing with this fear right now and it's holding them back. What is the advice that you give them?
Okay. Truly inventory it. Like truly take an inventory of what it is. Look at it. Share it with somebody that you trust. Cut it in half. And then learn to dance with it. Get exposure to it. When somebody has a fear of snakes, they do exposure therapy. They let them first start holding a very small garden snake. Same thing with flying. It's exposure therapy. But it's a process. And I think that's something that I would want to share with everybody. Getting over fear, getting to your goals and dreams, building the body you want, building the business you want, building the marriage you want. All of it is a process. It is not that Twilight Zone episode. You don't wake up one day and it's all bestowed on you. So learn to dance and enjoy with the process.
I think that's great advice, man. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a recap episode, and I'm going to really talk about some of the takeaways I've had after I've had a little bit of time to process some of this conversation myself. But that's definitely going to be on my takeaway list. So definitely appreciate that. Adam, thank you so much for being here today. If someone wants to get in touch with you, wants to work with you, what's the best way for them to follow you or get in contact with you?
Yeah, I'm 47 years old, so I made it easy for myself. It's Adam Jablin on every platform. It's AdamJablin.com, Adam Jablin on Instagram, Adam Jablin on Facebook, TikTok, whatever it is. It's just Adam Jablin. That's where you can find the Hero Project. That's where you can find my speaking and my events. That's where you can find what I'm up to. That's where you can find my coaching programs. That's where you can find my free resources like the Hero 7. Adam Jablin.
Appreciate it, Adam. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here all week long and providing such great insights. Guys, highly encourage you to touch base with Adam as well. I will have a link to his website in the show notes, so that way you can find him everywhere. And tomorrow, I'm going to have my recap episode, which will give you my big takeaways from the week. And I will maybe share some personal insights or stories of things that came up for me while doing this interview with Adam. But until then, I remind you, as always, guys, that while none of us are born unshakable, we can all become unshakable.